At the midway point of the MLB season, what better time to hand out some superlatives for some of the best and worst players in baseball, as well as some of the players to look forward to in the second half of the season. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that fun stuff. Let's start out with a fun one, and that is Rookie of the Year in the American League, and it just has to be Josh Jung of the Texas Rangers. Just selected as a starting third baseman for the All-Star game, Jung has enjoyed quite the rookie year. Sitting at 2.2 WAR, Jung is hitting .274 with 325 on base and a .485 slugging, giving him an .811 OPS and a .120 OPS plus, with 16 home runs and 48 RBI. The third baseman is enjoying his long-awaited debut after sitting 3 years atop the Rangers prospect list. He's a part of the Rangers team that has taken the league by storm in the AL West. And that's who I have for the most surprising team in the American League. And how can it not be? Going into the year, it was a question of whether they could contest the Astros for the division. And now, they have the best run differential in baseball. And the team isn't done there. The team is already making moves to improve by grabbing closer Aroldis Chapman from the Kansas City Royals. Overall, this team is way scarier than anybody could have imagined, and is in large part without Jacob deGrom. Switching over to the National League side, I had to go with the Arizona Diamondbacks in the season that they're having. It was tough not to put the blistering hot Cincinnati Reds, but for the totality of the season, I had to put the D-back. I'm not sure anybody could have confidently came into the year and said this team was going to take the lead of the division over the loaded Dodgers and Padres, but here we are. A lot of the reason for this team's performance is due to their all-star outfielder Corbin Carroll. Currently, the shoe-in pick for the Rookie of the Year, Carroll is hitting .290 with a .366 on base and a .559 slugging, giving him a .926 OPS and a .151 OPS plus. The former top prospect is making the transfer to the MLB game look seamless, and maybe, just maybe, might be pushing for that MVP award. Now let's take a look at some not-so-inspiring stories from this MLB season. In my personal favorite award, the What Happened award. I think the award has to go to the entire New York Mets for their poor performance when considering this payroll. Currently set at 36-45 and fourth in the division, the all-in approach has seemingly backfired. The veteran signings have not led to the production that the Mets expected, and with timely trades, the Mets don't have much coming up the pipeline to fall back on. Alright, enough sulking. Surely the AL version of this award can't be so, my god. What happened? Alek Manoah couldn't be more perfect for this award. Manoah finished third in the Cy Young voting this past season and is now getting shelled by 18-year-olds in the Florida Complex League. It's easy to attribute Manoah's struggles to his weight problems in a year where attrition for pitchers is more important than ever, his downtick in velocity, his pitching is having less movement, or just a combination of the three. Let's all hope Manoah can find his old form and that his mental isn't completely shot. Now, let's take a look at some players to watch for in the second half of the year. But Avery, I want to know who you have as the Cy Young and MVP. We'll get there, I promise. But first, briefly, let's talk about Eugenio Suarez of Seattle Mariners. Suarez, from a traditional stat standpoint, is not having a good season. 8 homers for a guy that's been averaging around 30 for much of the last 5 seasons is never something to be excited about. But there is still hope in this bat. A lot of his underlying numbers are still in the top 25% of the league, and his expected slugging is almost a full 100 points higher than his normal slugging. Not to mention he is currently sat in the 93rd percentile of outs above average at third base, which is well above his career rate. So be sure to be on the watch for Eugenio Suarez in the second half of the season. The counterpart I would look to in the National League is Keibert Ruiz of the Washington Nationals, a player I shall not mention the defensive prowess of. Ruiz's expected slugging is also a full 100 points above the traditional, but in a different way. Ruiz's game is much more predicated on average, and in which case, he's just not getting rewarded this season. Ruiz's average currently sits at .235, but his expected average is at .290, which is in the 92nd percentile. So be on the lookout for the young catcher in Washington. The pitcher in the National League I would look to improve is Yu Darvish of the San Diego Padres. Part of another disappointing roster, Darvish has caught a lot of flack for his poor performance in 2023, but it's not all his fault. Currently with a .484 ERA and giving up a career high in hits per 9 innings, what could possibly be saved about the aging pitcher? Well, his FIP is currently set at .386, a full run lower than his ERA, and the underlying numbers might even be more promising. Batters are slugging 44 points higher than his expected value, with the WOBA sitting 20 points higher than his expected WOBA. Darvish should rebound in the second half of the year. But will the Padres? Another quirky veteran that is set to bounce back is Nestor Cortez of the New York Yankees. I'm not saying he will be the pitcher he was last season, but Nasty Nestor should return to his 2021 form. Currently with a .516 ERA and a career-high hard hit percentage against, did the league finally figure out the wily veteran? Well, the hitters are getting a bit luckier than they should be by the expected numbers. Cortez's expected ERA is almost a full run and a half below his traditional ERA of 3.74. His expected WOBA is 30 points below the traditional value, and the expected slugging is 55 points below the baseline stat. There's a lot to like for a good second half of the season for Nasty Nectar to rear his head once again. Alright, now to the big guns. For the Cy Young in the National League, there was a lot of great options. Kershaw, Strider, and Stroman are all fantastic options to throw into the hat, but the vote has to go to Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks. After having a career best season last year, it was expected that Gallen could take that next step into the elite of the elite and push for the Cy Young crown. And boy, has he ever. Currently with a 3.02 ERA, striking out 9.3 batters per 9 innings, and walking a career low 1.9 walks per 9 innings. Also, if we could just teleport back to 1923, he would currently lead the National League in wins, so what better choice could we ask for? On the American League side of things, we have Shane McClanahan, another league with some great names vying for that top spot, like Framber Valdez, Kevin Gausman, and Garrett Cole. McClanahan has been phenomenal so far this year with a 2.23 ERA and that all-important 11-1 win-loss record. On a rate basis, McClanahan is actually having the worst year of his career, and it's reflected in his FIP at a 3.65. And that will probably find some middle ground by the end of the year, but this isn't the end of the season. This is the mid-season. And so far this season, he's just been incredible. And finally, for the end all-be-all of the video, MVP. In the National League, there's no other selection to make besides Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani is a cheat code in the MLB, currently sat with almost 2 WAR more than any other player, including the National League MVP, who we'll get to in a second. The Japanese superstar currently has a 184 OPS plus as a batter and a 302 ERA as a pitcher. That is all that really needs to be said. So I don't want to bore you with some Ohtani ego stroking. So let's talk about the National League MVP. At the moment, the MVP is really for one player, unless you really want to stretch the verdict, and that player is Ronald Acuna Jr. At 25 years old, he is hitting .331 with a 408 on base and a 585 slugging, giving him a 993 OPS and a 164 OPS plus. Acuna is on pace to steal over 70 bags this season and is just overall the front runner for the award. The fun pick is Corbin Carroll, and I understand the merit behind it, but I just cannot take away from what Acuna is doing this season. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, let me know your superlatives for these positions and your predictions for the rest of the season. And have a great rest of your day.